So welcome, I would like to call the meeting to order.
Wait, we're not done yet.
And we'll all rise, and if you have a hat, take it off, and we'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Nice to have such a big crowd. Melinda draws a crowd. There's no one on for public comment, so we're going to begin tonight with a financial update from Lisa Halls. She's hiding in the back.
I think so, yeah.
Good evening, Rick. Let's see, I'd like to just bring to the board's attention a few items since I last spoke with you at the end of October when our audit was presented. And I think I'll start on the federal side. Most of it I'm going to talk about tonight revolves around taxes. So tax talk has definitely been ramping up both on the federal and the state level, and particularly with the advancement of the different pieces of legislation generated by the House and the Senate for a federal tax cut plan in Congress. And now, because they are differing, the bills are different, they are in a conference committee with the goal of trying to come up with one bill that would go out to both the House and the Senate. And Congress has used over the last few months a process called budget reconciliation, and where the majority hopes to pass a partisan tax legislation that can't be filibustered or does not require any of the Democratic Party votes. And they are hoping a self-imposed deadline of year-end, December 31st is their goal. But in order to do that, the Republicans must first pass a budget resolution for their fiscal year budget 2018. And still only as of last week, now they have a continuing resolution or basically an extension to spend for another few weeks. And this is important to us for many reasons. In particular, about once a month I check in with Senator Crapo's office, and I did that on the 16th of November for an update on any possibility of the federal budget 2018, including an appropriation for federal force dollars, which expired. And for us, that was about $160,000 of revenue a year. And the federal senators that are supporting that, including Senator Crapo, their strategy now is they're trying to add it on to one of the agency budgets and then further specify that those dollars would be used specifically for federal force dollars for public schools and counties. Although the contact that I've now been talking to for seems like almost 2 years really didn't leave much hope out there. It's also important because we have our final federal appropriations for our different title grants, but they truly aren't finalized until the federal government adopts their federal 2018 budget. And while the federal tax bill is vast and complicated, and I don't purport to have read either of the bills, there's one provision that's receiving a lot of dialogue in terms of potentially affecting school funding nationally and other public agencies, and that is what's called the state and local tax, the SALT deduction. And one bill proposes to eliminate it entirely, and another to slim it down. And what SALT allows taxpayers currently to do, if they itemize on their annual return, is to deduct property and income tax or sales tax. Most deduct property tax from their federal return to avoid being taxed twice. So there's some argument nationally that eliminating or changing the SALT deduction would remove or alter a taxpayer's incentive to accept or vote to accept tax increases, since they would receive little or no federal tax break in return. So this is, I'm highlighting this one portion because Lake Pend School District depends on 30% of its annual general fund revenue from a property tax supplemental levy. About 28% of Idahoans itemize and deduct SALT.
What was that percent?
28%, that's from, that estimate comes from the Idaho Fiscal Policy Center. There's also a fair amount of discussion that in order to pass this $1.5 trillion in tax cuts on the federal side, that perhaps the federal government would be financing this by deficit financing. In other words, the federal government is not mandated by law to have a balanced budget. They can borrow money to pay for those tax deductions. But the real crux is that this will impact Idaho's budget and potentially affect maintaining services that are currently in place. Today it was reported in the Lewiston Tribune that Idaho officials who have been kind of scrambling to try to determine what the impact would be say that the impact could be huge as far as state revenue collections. And the estimates vary that they could either boost tax collections by upwards of $200 million a year, or that they could cut annual revenues by $450 million a year. So that's a range of $650 million coming out of Governor Otter's office today by John Hanian. And he says that, in terms of a $3.45 billion state budget, that's a big swing. And I won't go into the particulars of how Idaho tax does or doesn't conform with federal tax, but also just to point out that the Idaho State Tax Commission today also was saying that the way the legislature looks at federal tax law, they have a bill, a conformity bill that recognizes Idaho tax code with the federal tax year that just closed. So consequently, if a federal bill were to be successful, the conformity bill would be taken up in the session that starts in January 2018 is actually for the tax year that ends 2017. So there'll be no effect next year, but there will be a practical effect in the following year. And the tax commission just anecdotally also says that it would be a nightmare scenario if Congress misses their end of the year deadline by passing the reform bill and instead drags it out until, say, March of 2018, leaving our Idaho lawmakers kind of in the dark as to what potential changes could be. As I mentioned earlier, our legislative session starts on January 8th with Governor Otter giving his budget proposal. It's this time of year where there's really heightened attention to both state revenues, are they tracking for what they projected for this year and estimating for fiscal year 19. And also there's some discussion, particularly in the gubernatorial races, on varying tax proposals. So if you recall, Superintendent Yubera in September of 2017 gave her draft K-12 request for fiscal year 19, and that was about a 5.9% increase. And I'm just estimating now that would generate for Lake Pend School District, if all of those requests in her line item were approved, that'd be about $1,040,000 more than we currently are receiving, which is about $19 million from the state. Right now, Under Governor Otter's office, there's a Division of Financial Management, and then there's the Joint Finance Appropriation Committee, and then there's the Economic Outlook Committee. There are 3 different bodies that now develop revenue projections for next year. Last week, I was attending a conference in Boise, an annual conference for the Associated Taxpayers of Idaho, and the 3 Republican gubernatorial candidates were there. All of them, Mr. Labrador calling for an $71 million tax cut, Alquist $622 million, and Little $438 million. So all in different time frames and in different ways also are potentially furthering a tax cut discussion here in Idaho. Pretty much for the last 2 legislative sessions, tax modifications in Idaho have been discussed, and pretty much nothing has been done, except last year our legislature approved eliminating a sales tax on groceries, and then of course Governor Otter vetoed that. He also reiterated that he would veto that again this year last week in his remarks to this Associated Taxpayer Committee's conference. And then the personal property tax exemption went up to $100,000, but no like major tax reform in Idaho. And unlike with the federal government, Idaho must balance its budget, and the different chairs of the tax committees are very powerful in Idaho. They can choose not to introduce a bill. They can just, what they call, draw it. And that's essentially what's happened over the last 2 years. The tax bills have been drawn. And then finally, I just wanted to talk about the funding formula committee. They had their final meeting on November 16th, and as a result of that, they are trying to either put together a second executive summary for their work for this second year, or a piece of legislation that would delineate potentially their recommendations. And they're pretty solid on the following: transitioning to an enrollment reporting away from average daily attendance, one. That they would probably establish a base student amount and then add weights. And I would suggest, if you have a pencil in your hand, that there is a website called edbill.com that the committee consultant Margarita Rosa suggested that the committee members review, and basically this website shows for every state in the nation the type of funding formula they use, and then moreover the different weights that they use. Because in the 2 years of discussion, there's literally been about a half an hour of discussion on what those weights could be, and that's going to be sort of the nuts and bolts of really what happens above and beyond transitioning to enrollment. They decided to recommend reducing the number of distribution payments from 5 to 4 annually. They're committed to implementing year 4 and 5 of the teacher career ladder allocation model, and they're going to ask for an additional year appropriation for the interim committee to continue to meet. They are not in any way discussing additional funding for facilities, and they are in agreement that at this point they are unwilling to talk about any non-voter approved property tax components as an integral part to the funding formula. Which then finally brings me to, of course, Lake Monterey School District adopts a budget annually, and in our non-supplemental levy years, that process pretty much commences in January. And we've heard from Governor Otter and other representatives either here locally or over the last few months that still education, and now not only K-12, but higher ed looms as sort of the first priority, perhaps even eclipsing any kind of tax discussion. Are there any questions? Thank you.
Lisa, I really appreciate you keeping us informed, because this is a lot of content to keep track of, and I know that for myself, it's outside what I'm aware of, and so when you keep us informed of these highlights, it makes a great deal of difference. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
I can take a motion to approve consent agenda at this time.
I move to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. None opposed. Motion passes. We're going to move on to some administration, and the very first up, I'm just going to talk loudly, but when you're up there, your microphone's on, and the very first up is Homeschool Academy. Melinda Rossman, welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you. We're looking forward to hearing from you.
And before she starts, if you don't mind, I would like to say it's nice to have Steve Youngdahl here because former board chair and a longtime board member.
I'm under pressure.
Yes, he's watching. And I will say 5.5 years ago when I was hired, one of the first conversations I had with one of my 5 bosses was about figuring out a way to increase our partnerships with homeschool families. And we did a lot of brainstorming for a lot of months, and there was a lot of fits and starts trying to figure out how do we do this, how do we build trust and all those things. And finally we just thought, let's just start talking with families, asking them, what would you like to see in a school that would support you all in educating your children. And we took a calculated risk, I would say, because we had just a handful of families that committed in the summer. And so we thought, okay, well, let's hire somebody and see if we can build a program. And I say a calculated risk because if very few students come in, we do not receive any revenue to pay for the salary. So it was critical for us to hire the right person, and Andrew Murray and I I think it was maybe June of 2016, thought, okay, pressure's on here. So we need to hire somebody that's gonna really listen to our families, build trust, build a program that's based on feedback from the families that is very fluid and responsive. And we found an absolute diamond through a competitive process in Melinda Rossman, and she has far exceeded our expectations, and she's got a phenomenal parent group of which many are here, and they're very involved. And with that, I'm just thrilled to have Melinda here to share a little bit about our Homeschool Academy.
Thank you.
Yeah, you bet.
Thank you. Do I have to stand there? Can you hear me? This is by far the most extraordinary experience of my professional career. I say that all the time to people that I meet. I've been given an extraordinary opportunity to create something from nothing. And when I saw the ad in the newspaper 2 years ago almost, I said, that's my job. And it became my job, so it was awesome. And I love every day of what I'm doing. We've come a long way, and to the families that came this evening, thank you. And to the people in the audience, thank you for being here, and the board, thank you for allowing us to speak this evening. Thank you. I created a little PowerPoint just to describe some of the things that we're doing and give you a quick idea of some of our beginnings and where we're currently at, and a little vision for the future. And I don't know that you can see it, but let's see. And of course, I didn't bring my glasses. It hit that again. Sorry there. I waited too long. I know with mine, it's just I go up to the little arrow and it comes back on. There it is. So the Homeschool Academy, I started interviewing families in July of 2016, and I interviewed Julie Fight. She's back there in the corner. She was one of the original families I interviewed and said, what do you want? What do you want it to be? And I interviewed 5 other families, and they told me what they would like to see as a focus and what we could do to create a community of learners. And it started from that. And so I took their ideas and I started developing schedules and started developing curriculum and started developing relationships in our community to bring into the school. And I think that's one of the coolest things for me as a professional is the relationships I'm building in the community because of the contributions that they're providing for our school and our learning community. So that's a powerful opportunity. whenever I do a beginning of a year, as you can see here, this was our first day of this year back in September. That was our first circle up. And we had 40 students in that circle up at the beginning of this year. We currently, well, I'll tell you about that, that's a surprise in a minute. So we do circle ups. Let me go to the next, I think this is how you do it on this one. So, that's me. In the summer of 2016, I was tasked with creating a homeschool academy for Lake Pondere School District. I love to say Pendorio. Pondere School District. And the rest is now history, and will continue to make history. That picture was from the fire station last year. I took the kids up to the Schweitzer Fire Station, and we got to spend a day doing fire games. We had 4 different stations, and the kids were in groups, and we got to do climbing wall, we got to do hit a target with the fire hose, and just meet with the fire and the ambulance, and all kinds of great things, and learn about what they do up there at the Schweitzer Fire Station. And that was a great field day experience. From simple to complex, I love this little piece of data. At the end of the first month of last year, at the end of the first month of September of 2016, we had achieved 503 student contact hours. And everybody thought that was a success. The last day of our first month this year, September 2017, at the end of that first month, we had 2,350 contact hours.
Wow.
For 1 month. So you can see it's growing. And that was one of the things I told Mr. Woodward and Ms. Murray, right? Look, I haven't done this in a few years. I said, I promise you I know how to make things grow. And right now, I think we're just under 7,000 hours for this year as far as student attendance hours already.
Wow.
So it's pretty awesome what's going on with our school and our community. Creating a community of learners is an awesome task, but I think working with the families is the most awesome, rewarding experience. And working with these families that have chosen an alternative method of education and pursued an educational path for their children, it really is a highlight of my professional career. And families that attend the Homeschool Academy are always in cooperation with me, and they help me decide what courses to plan and push forward with, and I facilitate its organization, and they keep bringing the kids, so it's working. And every day, like over the last 3 weeks, I have been in conversation with 15 new families, and of those 15 new families, in January, 14 new students will be joining our roster.
Oh.
And there's still 5 families that haven't stepped into the commitment, but we'll have 10 new families starting in January as of today. So I'm pretty excited
Yeah.
there also. Our school is a community, and it's continuing to grow and expand in its possibilities for education. And we operate our calendar in 3 sessions. We do a fall session for about 12 to 14 weeks. We do winter session. This year it's just a 10-week block. And then we do a spring session. In each session, we focus on some sort of environmental education activities. And during our fall sessions, we really focused on forestry practices, teaching the kids the names of the local tree. Hey, I didn't see come in. Like a little surprise. Sorry. But I was allowed to buy forestry measurement tools. I have 19 years with U.S. Forest Service in my previous career as a ski coach and a forest officer for my year-round combination. So bring a little bit of different skills to the plate before I went back to grad school and got my teaching master's. And been doing this as my 17th year now, being an educator traditionally, but now I'm to be untraditional, which is the best part. But we practice forestry practices in the fall and learning the names of trees and how to do timber management and how to do navigation and set plots and measurement. And I have a group of at least 12 kids that want to compete in the state forestry challenges coming spring. So we're working towards that. And during our winter sessions, we study a lot of winter ecology and snowpack and really get outside and study the winter environment. Really showing kids that you can be outside during the winter and have a great time, not only exercising but learning. In the spring, we're going to continue to work in botany and dendrology and still study our forest environment, and we focused more on the aquatic environment last year. So at our school, we offer environmental education, we offer humanities and arts. This year we spent, and last year also, but this year every Wednesday I had 52 kids go to the conservatory. And at the conservatory, we did culinary arts, theater, musical carousel, and art. And our art teacher right there, Sherry Tilford, she's one of our parents also. She's a master artist. But I think that as we move our program into the future, we'll become known as a world-class program, and I have families calling me from all over the United States. It's not just here in Idaho. I have people calling from all over the United States going, what are you doing there? We're moving there next year. What are you doing? So I think that's pretty exciting also. The students and families of the Homeschool Academy, like the daily enthusiastically participate in every session offered. I wrote a 12-week session on biogeochemistry. And we're in a K-12, K-8 school. And I would have 35 kids in my science class for those 12 weeks. And we started with the first session being what is an atom? And then what is a molecule? And then we worked into the periodic table, all the way to where we found out what were the elements within the soil and how do they become soluble for the plant to take in its nutrition. And I've got parents going, my kid was trying to describe to me last night, there's something that's everywhere, but we can't see it. When a kindergartner is going home and trying to explain an atom to the parent, I think that kindergartner has absorbed that language. They might not fully comprehend how to utilize it forward, but my older kids engage in much deeper, richer conversations around it. So in other words, we have a very wide array of activities and lessons that we run in sessions that we conduct. This picture here, we had 50 kids in a choir this year. That was one of the requirements to be at the conservatory on Wednesdays, is you had to commit to being in the choir. And every time I was in that room with them singing, they brought tears to my eyes, because what they did in a short amount of time was really wonderful. And we'll continue with the relationship with the conservatory. We have wonderful educators there.
Is that photo at the conservatory?
Yes, it
Yeah.
was. It was in their theater
In
room.
that main room, yeah.
We had over 100 parents and family members in attendance on Wednesday the 6th for our all-school review. So that was awesome, and this is from that day. And then students love the technology lab. They play what I call spatial temporal type math games within the computer lab. I only allow them to go to math-based websites to play when they have time to work in the computer lab. If they had their way, they would spend the entire Freeform Friday in there. And it's like, get over here, do this with me. So having the students engaged in creative activities is what we do on Freeform Friday. It's also a day for them to build social connections and friendships and learn to cooperate and help each other within the learning environment. And there's a lot of laughter on Fridays. And oftentimes I'm engaged with the activities with the kids also. We're rapidly growing as an educational environment. Our educational environment is rapidly growing. Our reputation is spreading in our community and throughout our nation. And as we acquire a final location to host our homeschool, my visions for the next steps of our school are pretty extraordinary, and it really is contingent on us getting into that nice space. And because our space sold, so we have to get out of it anyway. And again, I'm having the most extraordinary time of my life doing this job. And I do have a few parents that would like to say one or two things. If you have two come up, I'd like to invite Sue Ann Ellis and Ms. Sherry Kilford and Ms. Julie Fife. And is anyone else in the crowd want to speak over too, or something? Come on up. So these are some of my families that have wanted to share some of their thoughts about what we're doing at the Homeschool Academy. And I really thank you, board members and Mr. Woodward, for supporting what I'm doing and for helping our school grow.
Thank you. Yeah, we'd love to hear
Come
from
on
you.
up, Julie Fife. Come on up.
I have 3 kids. One is aged out of the program, but they went all last year. And then, long story, the middle one is my problem child. So he has moved on to a full day experience. But my youngest is still in the program. And we decided to do it because anybody who is homeschooled probably knows it's really hard. There's a lot of hats you wear, and to be able to find somewhere that you can put your kids, that you can trust the environment, is really, I mean, it's important to everyone. whether you homeschool or you send them to public school. But I think when you homeschool, you sort of get used to being the only person, and then it's hard to say, oh, I'm gonna send them out with this other group. And when we met with Melinda last summer, she gives off a positive vibe, and you think, okay, I'm not sending my kid out there for their first experience in school, and it's gonna be something that will terrify them. And I think what impresses me is Idaho is not seen as very out there educationally. I like it that this program is here, and Sandpoint's this little tiny town, and you would imagine, oh, what are they doing? Everything's real traditional. And to find this program here, I think is unique, and I think it speaks a lot to the community as a whole. And really, that's what this program is about, is building community. And when you go in, if you ever visit, the kids with K through 8, you've got so many ages and so many personalities, but it works. And I think that is why it's growing so fast. Like anytime I meet a new parent that asks, do your kids go there, or I heard your kids go there, what's it like? Usually they visit and they are, I think, impressed with, it's not like anything you've ever seen if you've been in a traditional classroom. And so, I think that may be why it is so appealing to people, is that it is different. I mean, I was public school, it wasn't all bad, it wasn't all good though. And when you see a little bit different approach, you think, well, even if it doesn't work completely, it allows the chance to try new things. And I think in this particular setup, you really do get to have input as a parent, and the kids get to have input. And I think that is the power of this particular program, is that it adapts as the group has grown and as new people come and go.
Thank you.
Thank you. Julie.
My name is Sue Ann Ellis. I only have one child. And it's very interesting to 3 children, 1 children. Big difference.
Yeah.
But many of the things that she said still pertains. I want to back up a little bit. Melinda and I were talking recently, and she mentioned that out of all of the students, and we're in the 60s.
When we return, yeah, we'll be at 67th in January.
Wow.
It tells me that she believes 85% are above grade level.
That's great.
I know mine is one of them.
Oh,
And there's some others that are too. And it really, what makes it work for us? Our son started out 2nd grade at Salem School. He struggled to fit in. We had to push him into 3rd grade. And 3rd grade left scars on him. Not only from the students, but the teacher. So when we left 3rd grade, we weren't too anxious to jump in anything that LPOSD was sponsoring. And I hope that, that can be seen, because I know other parents that have experienced that. But as a result of an article in the paper, which was beautiful, we went and we tried it out. That would have been April of last year.
Last spring.
And my son said, oh yeah, this is good. And he's the kind of kid that can pick up on anything. We were welcome. He was welcome. The kid who couldn't fit in elsewhere was welcome. I know this story isn't the only story of a child feeling that way. And when new parents come in, I love talking to them. I really love talking to them. Because when they have similar experience, we don't know if we should pull the child, because it's just such a tough decision to make.
Yeah.
And I like to tell them why we did it. The mutual respect in that room. I don't like to call it a classroom, but I don't have a better word for it. It's not just with the teacher to the students. It's student to student.
Mm-hmm.
That's phenomenal. I don't know where you can find that elsewhere. I I've never seen it. Not even, maybe in some college classes, but I've never seen it elsewhere. And one of the other big, the scheduling, the experiential aspect of it is wonderful, that can't be beat. But back to that 85% to tie that in. Parents of kids who are low grade level are very drawn to this program. And I think those are some of the reasons why. And yeah, you did a great job.
Yeah. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Sherry Tilford. My daughter Linda is in first grade, and we joined the homeschool academy last February. Not because I wanted to, but because she wanted to. I didn't actually want to send her to school at all. I really like having her home with me, which I still get to do 8 days a week, full time. But she goes to the homeschool academy a few days a week. One of the days is when I teach art. I have the extreme privilege of teaching a fantastic group of kids, and I work with Melinda to coordinate our art classes with what she's doing in science and what they're going to be doing on field days. So their week ties in the various things they're learning from different aspects, so the kids get to absorb all these amazing things in their own way, in the way that suits them best, which I think is one of the highlights of the program, and is difficult for a traditional school classroom to achieve. The multi-age classroom is fantastic. I know Isla is friends with kids that are not only younger than she is, but older than she is, and we don't get that in normal school. Kids just don't get to hang out together and learn from each other that way. I mean, the older kids are absolutely fantastic with the younger kids. They're so sweet. And I'm continually impressed by the kids and the families that are part of the program. They're open and they're generous and they're just sweet. I mean, they're such sweet people, and I think that's because Melinda is a sweet person who's generous and open, and she pulls that to her. And I can only imagine how much it's going to grow and how awesome it's going to get. And I'm so glad my friend introduced me to Melinda and this program. That'd be perfect.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. I know some of my families came for this part of the presentation, and I know I want to get my mom home eventually, but thank you so much for letting us speak tonight and share some of our insights about the school. And believe me, it's gonna take off. And that's one of the things, this respect, like that more than anything, safety and respect. Those are the two things I teach the most about. It's like you can't learn if you're not being safe, and you can't go out on field days unless you're going to be safe. And you can't have a good time if you're not respecting each other. I think that's one of the reason it does work, is that's one of the things I implore most heartily is respect. And thank you. Thank you for having us.
Thanks, Linda.
Thank you. And
Do you have questions?
I have to call on Steve. It's mandatory.
Thank you. Firstly, and Sean, thanks for the kind words. What I want to add on to that a little bit, Sean's the third superintendent that I spoke to about trying to establish, something for the homeschoolers. But it took Sean to actually get it done. And so anyway, it's really, the whole thing is on his shoulders. All we did was put on the list, and then he just does like everything else. It's on the list, boom, it gets done. But don't, because we're all so familiar with it, we probably kind of lose sight of some things when you leave this area and how people talk about this district. And I've had someone in the governor's race actually have him send him information on the Homeschool Academy because they thought that was so fascinating that they actually made me promise to get that to him, gave me email addresses, contact information. And so anyway, I reached out to Melinda, she helped me out, and I got the information to him. But that's one of the front runners for running for governor. We have another that is the front runner for the Congressional District Number 1, U.S. Congressional District Number 1, that is going to be in town in a week and wanted me to set up a visit for our aviation,
Yeah.
which is all done by completely all volunteer and donations. And so we're going to go out to the airport, and we're going to go to the high school, and so he can see everything that's going on. I mean, we live here and we see it every day, and so we kind of get used to it. But the fact of the matter is, we're cutting edge in so many places, and we have really captured the attention. I didn't know too far outside Idaho, but certainly in Idaho. And we're just doing some fabulous things, and I want to thank the board for continuing the tradition. That's all I have.
Thanks, Steve.
Thank you. Well, it's an honor to have the Homeschool Academy be part of the district. I think it is to all our benefit that there's this relationship, because we all benefit through the whole community being engaged in educating the kids, and I'm just glad you're doing what you're doing. Thank you, Melinda.
I'd like to say that we have a pretty traditional model for education, and we recognize that one size does not fit all. And so we celebrate your success for creating this new model and drawing so many more families into public education, which we're all here for. We're all so excited about. So I applaud you. I sincerely applaud you, and I want to speak for the board here. We want to support you any way we can.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I get the unique opportunity of getting to write curriculum, but I also have 15 years in a classroom before I took on this job. And then all my years running, with the ski industry and whatnot, teaching there. But everything I do is standards-based. I am constantly reading the standards and go, okay, I know it's here's kindergarten, here's third grade, here's eighth grade, and try to mix and match my lesson writing to meet the standards. So everything I'm doing is standards-based within the curriculum.
Well, thank you very much. If parents want to stay, absolutely stay and hear the riveting rest of our meeting. But I understand if you sneak out the back door. It's not going to hurt our feelings. Thank you so much. Don't all leave. No. We have Phil Kemick, our principal. He's going to come up next. Alternate authorization, teacher to new certification.
It's somewhat sort of a teacher new certification because it's a teacher that's been in my building for 11 years.
Right.
And I am requesting permission from the board to approve the alternative authorization. The teacher came to me from industry. He has a naval engineering degree. He has a Juris Doctorate. He has a huge background in, he's been working on oil rigs, doing welding. He has owned his own dredging company for years. Up to North Idaho, and I acquired, I think I hired Bill Nye, the science guy, actually.
Yeah.
He was slated for retirement 2 years ago, and I had a lot of difficulty trying to find a math teacher, so he stepped up and moved from science, got his math endorsement, and taught math for a year. Getting ready to retire again, and I lost my business teacher of 29 years, and he said, you know what, this is right up my alley, I want to start working in CTE. And so he is doing like tech ed type stuff. And we thought we had this whole thing slated and good to go. He joined the Insight cohort group with U of I and talking to people with Boise. Started that in last year, and what that requires is him to basically attend meetings at U of I monthly. And when the endorsement codes finally hit the books down in Boise, they found one little snag in it, and it was the welding class that he was teaching. And so, as a result, we are going after, instead of limited occupation specialist, we're going after the full board specialist with him so that he can teach a lot of different classes. And this whole thing kind of came down last week, and so we've been scrambling trying to get this thing rolling. He has already enrolled in 4 classes starting next semester at U of I. He has 5 that he totally has to take to pass the praxis and take it. And so we're already well on our way, so I guess I'm asking you guys for permission to move forward.
So at this time, we can either ask questions of Phil, or I can hear a motion, but you will have a chance to comment.
I move that we, accept Phil's recommendation.
For alternative
For alternative
authorization
Authorization, yeah.
for Marty Jones.
For Marty Jones. I second the motion.
Moved and seconded. Are there any comments or thoughts?
Just a comment, I think it's a good fit. I've seen what he's doing out there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
None opposed, motion passes. Thank you, Phil. Next, we have Principal Tom Albertson is going to talk to us about a calendar change for additional PLC time.
Once again.
Another calendar change.
Tom's back.
Actually, the presentation is joint between Phil, Jeff, and I.
Yeah.
And got a few slides to share with you. What we're asking is to adjust the calendar for second semester to allow more professional learning community time. And I'll go over that here in just a second.
Tom has some good jokes too. He loves telling jokes. If you want to,
Come on.
Just-
Come on.
Yeah, you have a minute. Go ahead.
So as I said, we're requesting more time for staff collaboration. As a district, we started looking at this focus in August, and just so you're aware, what we currently have, and again, I'm going to let Jeff and Phil speak on their school, but currently what we have at Sandpoint High School is we have 58 minutes once a month that we spend on professional learning community collaboration. What we're asking for is 58 minutes each week. And I can't make it any simpler than that. What it would mean is each Wednesday we would have the same schedule, which would be what we would call an early release, but it's really 58 minutes out earlier, not 2 hours. So I just kind of wanted to put that clarification there. You may ask, why now? Haven't you been doing this? Yeah, there's been some great things that have been happening. But to me, it's this statement right here is we have a move here from an interest in collaboration, an interest in professional learning communities to a commitment. And I want to thank the department chairs that are here today from Sandpoint High School that are supporting this. They've already started the work. The one thing though, when we're working on professional learning communities and collaboration, we'll talk a little bit more about this, is what do you need? And it comes back is we need more time together with our departments. That's what we need, and that's why we're here today to talk about that. The fundamental purpose of any school is to ensure that all students learn at high levels, not just some students, but all students. Educators must work collaboratively and take a collective responsibility for the success of each student. And I underline these because you might say, well, aren't all students learning at high levels? That's our goal. But we really need to focus in on each student for that to continue to happen. And with the collective focus on evidence, and that's the key there, is the evidence of student learning. Are we focusing on teaching, or are we focusing in on learning? And I can say that's probably the biggest part of the professional learning community is that switch to all students and focusing in on student learning. Not that we're doing a good job teaching, but how are we measuring learning? So again, when it's fairly simple, and that's what I like about it, is every professional learning community day is going to be centered around one of these 4 questions. What do we want students to learn? Are we on the same page? So we need time to do curriculum work. We need time to make sure that our pacing guides are in alignment. We need to make sure that we're teaching to the standards and that we have common learning targets across all teachers. After we know what we're teaching or what we want students to learn, we're going to move to how do we know students have learned that? How are we measuring learning? Not just good teaching, not just teacher evaluations, going in and saying these teachers are doing a good job, but how are we actually measuring learning? Common formative assessments, checking for understanding, trainings, summative assessments, end of course assessments. This is all work that needs to happen. And the work needs to happen from the experts. And the expert is not me in every content area doing top down saying, you will do this. These are the experts. The experts are collective minds working together, answering these questions together with my support. Once we're measuring whether or not students have learned, what do we do if students have not learned? What are our interventions that we have in place? Do we just move on, they didn't get it, and they moved on? No, we have to have interventions in place. We have to talk about that. And then also the enrichment program. What if the student's already learned it? What do you do with that student? So you can't forget that enrichment piece. So it's nothing more than these 4 questions that may be simple, but these 4 questions are not all just in a linear fashion. I want you to know that there may be one meeting where we think we have what students are learning. We got all the standards lined out. We know exactly, we got our unit templates, everybody's on the same page. We go to measure what the students have learned, and maybe we need to go to the intervention, but maybe we need to go back up to the top and talk about what do we want students to learn again based off of the data that we've collected. So again, this is a lot of meeting, measuring, adjusting, reteaching, and reaching all students. And I can't really say much more than that. That's basically the professional learning community model, and that's what we need time for. And so at Sandpoint High School, we would focus on those 4 questions. And I'd like, Jeff, Phil, to say what it would look like at your school.
I can say at Clark Fork, basically ditto, but the difference would be this will relate very well with our mastery model. And in regards to time is always a thing that teachers never have enough of, because you're always focusing on how do I help these kids. And like Ms. Melvin said, it's not about teaching, it's about the learning aspect. And so in regards to our school being a mastery institution, we do delve down to the individual. How's this individual doing in this class, this subject, that subject? How quickly are they moving along through the curriculum and meeting the standards? And this gives teachers the opportunity to have more collaboration time. When you only have, I think I got 2 teachers on my entire staff that even have a common prep, it's tough to find that meeting time. And so this would definitely benefit us again. And most of the board is new, so I'm going to give you a little bit of history. We used to have this model at my school, and I think it was at yours, wasn't it? We used to have it at our school, and then because when we went to block, then we dropped it, and now that we're back into more of a traditional 6-period day, we do rate after that.
I would just add that the entire PLC model and our request is based on 2 simple kind of truths that we all know in education, is that the best predictor of student learning is the quality of the teacher in front of that classroom. We know that quality teachers are the key to all this. The second thing we know, put that together, is that collaborative professional development, professional learning is far more effective than me getting in front of that staff and yakking for an afternoon. I'm sure those in-service days are very scintillating for them, and they love them. But at the same time, this is deep, ongoing, iterative professional learning that really can change a whole school's culture. We are a little bit different in that I don't have any teacher likes in our entire school, and the PLC model is at least content alikes or discipline alikes, preferably teacher likes. We don't have that, so we operate as a whole school PLC, And we have done some great work in the first 3 years I was here when we did have this early release time. When I got here, it was every Wednesday. Then we went to every other, and now we're down to just one. And we're really feeling that pinch because we're on the cusp of some really, really great, deep changes. And we just need some time to get together and make it happen. So I'd really appreciate your support of this change. It'll also get us in line with, I don't know if you mentioned this, but the middle schools and the elementaries already have those. So we sometimes hear from families about my third graders out. I need my high schooler to take care of them, so I need them out. So this gets all of our schools kind of on the same page also. Thank you.
Any questions?
So reading the little summary you put together for us, those hours, there'd be, 3 extra hours approximately a month where the students aren't in the classroom, and you're planning to make those up at the end of the year? Adding those hours back, where do those hours go?
Well, so we will be shortening those hours. Now, I did ask for Sandpoint High School also on the request to do away with the final exam schedule like I did for first semester, second semester. So some of the time is made up there, and also
'Cause they're back in the
made up
classroom
not
there.
doing the final exam schedule first semester. So basically lengthening those days does make up some of that time.
Okay.
And I can say according to the alternative school rules, even with this, 13 days over.
You're still adequate on hours in the seat. Okay, so in addition, I'm requesting a regular school day for Tuesday. Does that mean instead of a short day, it's going to a regular day?
That was a
One time. Tuesday, June. It's just Tuesday, June 5th.
Yes, just June 5th.
It's just June 5th. It was
Correct.
a short day, and now it's a regular day.
Correct. That's trying to adjust and get rid of that final exam.
It was a short day for final. Yeah.
Correct.
Yep. And Thursday, June 7th, similar. Yeah. Okay.
That would be for us too, because we're dictated by the Sandpoint High buses.
Yeah.
So-
Right.
And so we're all in this together because we're a transfer bus station, and so
Yeah.
the schedule of Sandpoint High School then reflects on the Lake Conroy High School schedule, and we also have a transfer bus that goes to Clarkport.
Okay.
So we met and we, recognize that what one school does kind of has a ripple effect on another school.
So,
Right.
Yeah, Gary?
You worked this out with the transportation schedules, it's not going to affect that?
We already have that transportation schedule. Now, it's just once a month, and what it would do is be every week
yeah.
and not just once a month.
What about after-school activities?
We already have that once a month, and again, we say activities, academics come first. Activities won't start until 3:30, so they won't start earlier.
Yeah.
Any teacher who is also a coach will be committed to the professional learning community work that we're doing and will not be available anyway. And for students to get help with teachers after school, right now, activities cannot start until 3:30.
Okay.
So I'm still a little bit confused about what you're going to do with this time. I mean, are you going to talk about individual students? Are you going to talk about analysis? Are you going to talk about development?
Database instruction. So let me give you one example. So let's say that we're going to have a common formative assessment, which maybe currently we're not doing as much as we should. So let's say every Algebra 1 teacher is going to give the same common formative assessment. And then we will, they will meet, they will look at the results of that common formative assessment, whether it be a short quiz, something along that line, but look at that data. And teachers learning from teachers, saying, wow, your students did really well, what are you doing? What are the best instructional practices you've used? I need to use those. And that's big. I've had teachers in here, and I'm not going to put any teachers on the spot right now, but I've had, this is a quote from a teacher, I brought a common formative assessment that all teachers had to give, that we've committed to give at the end of the quarter. Teachers were very, very nervous to share that out because they sometimes feel that, gosh, I'm probably not as good as that teacher, or I'm so much better than that teacher. And it was really hard to put all your cards out on the table, but the experience of sharing each other's practices and all becoming better from that was a very, very overwhelming positive experience there. Doing that once a month is not enough. And we need to be having these meetings on a regular basis.
Quadruple time.
What's that?
You're going to quadruple the time.
Yeah.
We're committing to it.
So, and
I'm sorry, and if I may, and
Yeah.
I can tell you that I spent at my last district 4 years as assistant superintendent of teaching and learning, and Andrea can attest to this. My primary work was to ensure that this was happening in all 11 of our schools. The district before that, as a principal in 2 different schools, again, stood up there just like Tom as a principal and said, we need to do this. This is going to make a difference, not only in practice, but in more students learning more. In my opinion, 58 minutes a week is such a small investment when you're talking about improved practice, because as Jeff said, it's all about improving what we do every day in the classroom so we have better results. So I just want to make sure you guys all knew that I'm absolutely in support of this. Jim and Tyler, it was so refreshing to go to the PLC conference in Seattle with you guys. It was more refreshing though after a month when we met. And I think, Jim, you said you've been waiting for something like this for I don't know how many years. You're pretty old, but I'm not sure how many years you've been at the high school. But your words were, we've needed this for a really long time. And then when I hear a teacher that's in the trenches saying that, it's like
I've been here since '99 teaching science. Our curriculum is what I've come up with. And same with teaching curriculum teacher. So the copious amounts of time is to whittle through that to determine what is it we all want students to learn, so that they're learning the same thing in every class. We don't have the time to do that. And when we do, it's at lunchtime or in the hallways. And so it's never been formalized. And that's what's going to take the time to do, and work down the ladder of the other commitments we have to get from that. Because, we don't really have a curriculum in science other than what we derived as individual teachers just moving along without allocated time towards working at it.
Yeah. So that kind of
That
work.
takes a lot of time.
And I just want you to know, I'm here today representing staff members of Sandwich High School. As department chairs, if they had said, we're not ready for this is too big of a commitment, we're not into this, I wouldn't be standing here. So they overwhelmingly said, Tom, the best thing you can do is give us this time as professionals so we can work together on this.
So, what are you going to do on this day? Are you just going to shorten all the periods that day by?
We already have that.
It's the way the Wednesday schedule.
Yeah.
So you're just going to use the same Wednesday
Yeah.
schedule?
I believe there's
every
17,
Wednesday.
instead of 90 minutes, there's 70
Yeah.
minutes.
And a different lunch and yeah.
And then you say, how much of this 3 hours a week of instruction period that we're losing, are we going to regain?
3 hours a month.
3 hours a month.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
sorry. 3 hours a month, are we going to regain in other places?
And that's what he was referencing.
So when I've come back the last couple of weeks and adjusted the final exam schedules, that is putting time back into the instructional time instead of having less shortened days. I don't have the exact minutes of how that comes out. But
Yeah, I can send you all the exact minutes.
Yeah.
I know that as a teacher, when this started in the elementary school, I need student contact time. It didn't take me but a couple of meetings, collaboration meetings to say, yes,
Yeah.
we need this collaboration time. Because when you're in that classroom, you're alone.
Yeah.
And you don't see what's happening outside your classroom. And this gives an opportunity every week to get that, oh yeah, here's where we're at, this is where we need to go.
For sure.
I was against it, but I learned quickly. We gotta
So
have this.
do any other board members have questions of Tom or the other principals who are here? Or do you feel you have enough information? I do, I would entertain a motion.
Okay, I'll move to approve the alternate authorization.
No, the
I'm sorry,
calendar.
the
Yep.
calendar change for the additional PLC time, which is Professional Learning Committee, for 2017-18, and for the second semester for Sandpoint High School, Lake Ponderay High School, and Clark Ford High School.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Now, do we have any other comments? Any other comments, you guys?
So we're approving this for,
Second semester.
Second semester 2017 and all of 2018.
so we do this for a year and a half, and then we're gonna revisit this? Is that-
No, for one, it's semester 2 of this year.
Semester
We
2.
will be working on next year's calendar, our schedules, to bring to you, and you'll see that.
Incorporated.
Incorporated.
Right.
But that's not today's
So I
discussion.
won't be
Today's
coming
just.
to you hopefully next year, three meetings that are going to for calendar change.
So this calendar change is just for
Put that in the minutes.
second semester, and it actually begins January 31st. So it'll essentially be in
Semester
place February through May with the altered schedule there for the finals week in June. Moved and seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? No opposed. Motion passes. Thank you, all of you, for presenting that. And I am fully in favor of PLC time. We are going to hear from Matt Brass at this time, if I'm reading the right thing.
Yeah.
I'm on the wrong page. Matt Brass is going to present to us on Dell Chromebooks.
You already know, sometime in October, there was a community member who wanted to donate to the school district. And they wanted it to be in technology and younger grades. So we put together a proposal to purchase Chromebooks for all the third graders in the district. And it's not just a Chromebook, but it's a Chromebook Touch. So flip the screen around and it turns into a tablet, which they've been using K1, 2 up to that point. And so it's kind of an interim device to get them from using a touch device into typing in a keyboard. So when they hit 4th grade, we're working on also getting Chromebooks down all the way into 4th, 5th grade. We have them 6th through 12th right now. So the donation came through, and what I'm asking for tonight is that we are able to use the state of Idaho's contract with Dell, WN11EW, and bypass the RFP process and go straight to Dell on that contract and purchase the Chromebooks. We've done this twice before. We did it in the summer of 2016, where we purchased 360, and last summer came before the group board, and it was approved to do 490. Dell, they normally purchase for $329, and they came back to us with a cost of $280 per device. So it's $280 per device, plus the 25 and some change for the enterprise licensing. And then with that, in the proposal, we wrote in 2 hours of professional development for each third grade teacher so that they can see how to best use the device in their classroom. I guess that's pretty much it.
Does that use that full 100,000?
Yeah, we're going to purchase 350.
Yeah, and that came to the 91.
There's a little bit left
yeah.
over.
A little bit.
And what we set that aside for a couple things, in case we get more kids, and we have to have more, in case we want to pour a little more professional development in. And also,
Right.
we just last week found a Wi-Fi chip that Epson sells that would work in with most of our projectors. Because right now we have the Apple TVs, and one of the things that the teachers like is the kids can collaborate and they can connect to the Apple TV and show their work up on the board. But we lose that ability with the Chromebook, but there's eye projection app that Epson makes, and with this little Wi-Fi device that we plug into the back, we should be able to connect. Any kid can connect directly to the projector.
Makes them
and still show
interactive.
their work.
Yeah.
Cool.
So what we might do is if we have one on order right now, we hope gets here sometime this week, we can test. And if that works, we'll purchase 13 of those and put them in all the third grade classes.
That's awesome. Great.
So question. These computers are going to stay in the school, right?
Yeah.
These aren't going.
Yes, the only devices that go home right now are 9, 10, 11, 12. Yeah, I guess Clark Fork, just because it's the whole school, they have the middle school, all 7 through 12 together. They take them home, but our middle school in Sandpoint doesn't. So all the elementary devices are in carts and they stay in the classroom.
Do they have a warranty, Matt?
They have a 1-year warranty. And then beyond that, we fix those either in-house in the district office, or we work in collaboration. Alex Gray's class does a tremendous job, and a lot of the Chromebooks and devices that break, we have sent through district and illustrate his class. We purchase, whether through its insurance or directly through our budget, we purchase replacement parts, and they do all the fixes during the school year.
That is cool. So,
I have one question on the license. Is that for 1 year, or is that the
Once you
permanent
buy the
license?
license, it's for the life of the device. And if the device breaks down and we have to expire it and replace it with a like device, then we can reuse that license.
are there other questions for Matt? I'll entertain a motion.
I move that we accept Matt's recommendation and buy the Chromebooks with the monies he has available.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any comments? Nope. I just want to say I love getting those donations. That's outstanding. Keep them coming. All in favor? Aye. None opposed, motion passes. Okay, at this time, I'm turning the meeting over to Sean for first reading of 2 policies.
All right, so we'll have a little bit of this at each of our next probably 3 meetings, I think.
Yeah.
So this one here, this is our current drug, alcohol, tobacco policy. I want to just you to keep in mind that this does not change, nothing in here changes our current practice. This aligns our policy with our current staffing model and our current practice, so nothing is changing there. You will notice that policy 3305, and these are both ISBA model policy, we do not have a separate tobacco possession and use policy. Ours is embedded in our drug and alcohol policy, so I'm suggesting that we be more aligned with the ISBA model. So 3305 just pulls the tobacco piece out. That's all this is.
Yeah.
And so, but it's also reflective of our current practice and our current policy. So that's 3305. Do you have any questions with that one specifically?
From my reading of it, there were no changes on it from what we saw 2 weeks ago.
This is just
3305.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And this,
when it came across our packet 2 weeks ago, it was the exact same thing.
yeah, and this is again
Yes.
just first reading of this.
Yep.
Officially first reading, but yeah. So that's 3305.
Okay.
And we can go back to that if need be. The 3320, I'll just go ahead and start at the top. It would be renamed substance and alcohol abuse, since we're pulling that tobacco piece out. That first
3325 is being renumbered 3320.
3325, yeah, would be renumbered 3320. Yes, sorry about that.
Nope, just to clarify.
The first paragraph in there would be new. It's reflective of ISBA policy, model policy. It's just a philosophical statement. As you move through, our old introduction is somewhat similar to that new paragraph that ISBA recommends. If you go down to that prevention strike through, we would actually, and I messed up on that, sorry Kelly, we would keep that prevention title the same. It would not be stricken.
Okay.
And underneath that stricken prevention word there, that's our old language that I believe we should keep in. It's not in ISBA model policy, but
Right.
we want to, of course, make sure that we still continue with the prevention and research-based drug and alcohol education and all those kinds of things. Moving down to definitions, I've changed my mind, even though it's not in ISBA model policy. I'd recommend that we keep the controlled substances definition, we keep the definition for drug, and we keep the definition for drug paraphernalia. It's in our policy currently. There's no reason to take it out. Lonnie, last time you had said, let's be really specific.
Yeah.
So that's why I went back and said, okay, let's keep that in there.
It's kind of open the door
So-
for
so-
ambiguity.
Yes, so that would stay, so I'll work with Kelly on getting that fixed up. Sorry about that, Kelly.
Right?
So we've worked now, so, no, I'm just kidding. So the next, the intervention trained staff member.
That would come out.
That would come out still, because we're not referring to intervention trained staff members any longer in this policy. Reasonable suspicion, that would still be stricken because reasonable suspicion is outlined in ISBA model policy on page 2 already. Let's see, continuing to move down, voluntary disclosure, that title would remain, sorry about that again. We would keep the title underneath it.
It's all changed.
This verbiage is very similar to our current verbiage when it comes to voluntary disclosure right now. And then if you move down below that, reasonable suspicion is outlined there. And then moving on to the next page, page 3, it just basically goes down the list of this is what we will do if there's reasonable suspicion, etc. That's how our current policy reads. That would be no change.
Right.
Let's see here. The main thing that I wanted you to see is number 5, where it says the student will immediately be suspended from school and depending upon the circumstances may be suspended for up to 20 days and or recommended for expulsion. Again, consistent with current policy, as are number 6 and as are number 7. The biggest, the change piece would be, yeah, please.
Question on that?
Yeah.
This is on, well, I guess, never mind. Depending on circumstances in each case.
Yes.
Yeah,
Some
and
kid
it
has
says
As a can of chew in his back pocket, he's not getting expelled.
No.
procedures may be followed when this occurs. However, specific procedure may depend upon the circumstances in each case.
Yeah.
So it
I
allows
didn't
some
see that.
administrative,
I was like,
yeah.
Yeah, you're like, wait a minute here. Yeah, no, totally dependent upon the situation and the investigation and all of that for sure. Then moving on to page 4, that referral to law enforcement piece, that's already included in the ISBA model policy.
Right.
The change would be, and again, it wouldn't be a change, would be where it says enforcement procedures for alcohol and controlled substances. The reason it's stricken is because we would strike it from our policy and we'd move it to administrative procedure. And then what I would do is I'd work with Jeff and Phil and Tom and the other principals on going through pages 4, 5, and 6. We will be updating it because of the staffing piece I told you about before. But we will still, just because it's stricken from policy, this is immediately going to be retitled administrative procedure, which we can change without board approval.
Which is where it needs to be. We need our policy to be just policy and our procedure documents to handle all that procedural,
Exactly, yeah.
the steps.
Yes. So that's where we're at. And then in January is when I will meet with our administrative team on updating the current language in the enforcement procedures. But it will not change the practice. It's just going to be
Right.
updating the words so we're more accurate in what we're actually doing. So that's what I have for first reading on this one.
So, first reading, we don't have any motion to prove anything, but this is your opportunity to ask questions that were raised when you went through this document. Did you have anything you want to ask Sean while we are here for the first reading? Because this is the point to clear it up, not at second reading.
Okay, we've also discussed an additional policy for activities,
Yes.
participation.
Yes. So that would be coming up, I can't remember on the calendar, but I believe the second meeting in January.
That one,
Yeah.
yeah.
That will probably be a fairly lively conversation.
That'll be January 23rd.
Yes, and we're continuing to do research on that and what, the success or lack thereof success for those kinds of policies, but we'll bring that may take several meetings before we land on anything.
Is that 3,390 or 3,400
For the,
for the activities one?
I didn't bring it with me,
I
I'm
don't
sorry.
remember. Okay,
So the board will review this
That's
policy
3,400.
annually? I mean, we do state that
Exactly, yeah.
specifically.
Yes. Yeah, there's several that we're really supposed to be reviewing annually. Yeah, we got a list now, a running list.
so this is one you will see
We'll see
annually.
annually.
But right now, do you have any questions for Sean, Superintendent Woodward, on this first reading? Do you understand the changes that have been made?
I do.
The
I
thinking
do.
behind them?
I don't know, it's always struck me as tobacco use is one that, I mean, when I was in high school, you looked across the street.
Don't say
it
anything,
was like,
honey.
Well, there's everybody smoking. I mean, what happens? Like, is there any enforcement of that?
Yeah, I'll let Jeff or Tom or Phil, they deal with this. Jeff?
I mean, I don't want to put anybody on the spot. I'm just curious. It's
I'd say
different.
lessening the consequences with tobacco is in line with the recent change in Idaho code, which reduced it to just, it's a fine now. It used to get our kids on probation for up to a year, and Idaho code changed as of, well, a year ago, January 1, and it is now, I think, an infraction, $70 fine. $77.06. So they've really de-emphasized it in Idaho state code, so it's, when we find a student with tobacco in according to the current policy, we are much harder on them than the law is.
But you're gonna get fined $77.50 for every time you're trying to use tobacco. That is the deterrent.
Yeah.
So but this policy has fairly broad discretion for the schools, right? You know, should we talk about that and make sure that the policies between the schools for the level of offense are consistent?
Well, what we do now is, as with everything else, you'll see in most board policy related to discipline, it gives a lot of discretion to the principal because of the investigation. Every case is different, and it's very gray. I mean, we deal with this every day. And so the minute you say, in my opinion, in my experience, that this always gets this, there's usually much more to the story, and that's why principals spend much of their time investigating, talking with kids. You know, it's not a black and white world. So in my opinion, it's good to leave the words such as may. Now, notice in this policy, we still have will on some very important things, like law enforcement will be called. In ISBA model policy, and I forgot to mention this, it actually says may be called. But I wanted to make sure we stayed with will, because we want to make sure that our kids know we take it seriously. We're going to get law enforcement in. So, but sorry for rambling, but my opinion is to keep it as is, because
Keep the
discretion is very important in my opinion for the
And if I
principal.
could just point out that the 20 days is not, I can't impose 20 days by myself. I can only do 5 days. Then I call Sean. Sean can do another 10, and I believe then he has to go to you guys for another 5. Right? So
If it were to
there's
go that
many
far,
hours.
right.
For a student to be suspended 20 days to get up to the expulsion point requires at least 3 people, three different decisions.
Yeah.
For somebody to get to that point. The other thing to say is that I've worked in districts, I was assistant principal in a building in a district that had a very strict matrix, and it was painful, because it does remove that discretion of understanding what
Didn't
exactly.
talk about like first offense, second offense,
Yeah.
compounding offense.
And that will still remain in our procedures.
It will. So Gary, on the last 3 pages of our current policy,
4, 5, and 6.
it's pretty dialed in what happens on each thing. So it still gives you a pretty prescribed list of things that we're supposed to do.
And that's what will help guarantee the consistency
Yeah.
between schools, is that you're all looking at the same set of procedures
Mhm.
and applying your knowledge of the situation to those.
And
So-
when we update the procedures, we'll bring that back to you guys so you can see, and we can talk about how things are handled. I think that might be helpful.
If there are no other questions for Sean, I will hand it over for a first reading of policies from Clerk Kelly Fisher.
Here.
If you can be loud enough.
I can be loud enough.
Are you able to hear her? Okay.
So I have been tasked with starting the Board of Trustees section in our board policy. It's the 1000 series. And tonight I just have the first 1,000 and 1,100 group in front of you. Mainly I brought a couple just for some edit to get the formatting correct with all of our other policies. If you're looking at in policy 1,000, there's a couple commas that we're editing. Again, building the format properly to match all of our other board policies in the binder. Any questions? Do you want me to just go one at a time and then ask questions if you have them through each policy?
I think roll through them
Okay.
and raise your hand or ask Kelly a
So-
question specifically on one if you have a question.
Our current policy 1105, which is membership, I have a number change to align with ISBA model policy, so in the future we could update a lot easier. There were a couple changes to this in membership just to follow code, Idaho code. As you can see in the bottom, we didn't have the reference to vacancies of Board of Trustees. So I had a couple additional statements. Code has changed in that first paragraph as well to be very specific. It's you go to July 1st if you are a board member, not when you vacate your seat. Also, so that changes there. If you have any. Moving on to the next policy, it's currently 1,100, but I would like to change that to follow model as well to 1010. It's organization and classification. Again, just some capitalization changes on that board policy. The next policy is numbered correctly with ours. It's called election. It's policy 1110. Again, some punctuation. Also, in Idaho code, if you noticed in that second paragraph, it's stated, whether this was a code change or not, I did not look into the history of this, but we had 25 days before the election, but it is in code 45 days. Which I added the code down below in your references, declaration of candidacy. So there was a couple changes in that policy.
Okay.
Any questions with that one? The next is procedure that I've included. Again, you don't have to approve procedure, but I practiced this anyways as clerk, but in the future, long term, it would be really nice to have this in procedure in a document somewhere that is helpful to anybody looking at it. So this is a whole new procedure.
Okay.
Moving on to the next one, we have the current policy number. It's 1140. It's vacancies. Some formatting information, but about halfway down on the first page, well, it is only one page, sorry. It's second to last paragraph, there's been some code changes, and so that now reflects the current Idaho code. We adopted this in 2009, this particular policy, and we've never reviewed it, so now code has changed, and so I just referred that one. Also, the legal reference in code, the number has changed as well. And so Pearlie will be happy that that's finally changed over as well. The last two policies that I have in front of you are new. It's not that we haven't practiced this, but we just didn't have policy, and ISBA had model policy for these. It would be policy 1120, taking office. And so this would all be new. It's taking office as a board of trustee, and it references our policy of vacancies, policy 1140 as well.
It's what we've been doing anyway, but
Correct.
now it's in policy, yeah. Okay.
And then there is a page of procedures. Again, I would recommend, not that you have to adopt this, but just getting this in our board policy binder for future reference is very handy. So that whole procedure would be new. And then the last new policy that I'm presenting for first reading is policy 1130, and is resignations of a board member. And of course, the two legal references for code at the bottom.
Okay.
And that's all I have.
Thank you, Kelly. Do you guys have questions for Kelly? As I said, with first reading, this is your chance to ask her to clear up anything you're in doubt on. Those are very straightforward, actually. There's no motion needed on first readings, but now we go to Melanie. We have some second readings.
Oh yeah, there's a back page to this.
There's a back page. We're not finished.
You guys are scrolling, I had to flip them.
Since the first reading, I did make some updates that I included in the packet that you have tonight to both of the consent policies, the grammar and spelling changes.
Did any of you have questions on the first one, 5340 for Melanie? It's the second reading, so it reflects what we've already seen. No? Do we need separate motions for these two?
No, they're both revisions.
Okay, revision and renumber. Okay, so you can go right on to the next one.
Yep, same thing, second policy that's in your packet, just
64
change.
times. Okay. Any other questions?
I just want to thank her for all the changes.
I know.
Thank you for the third eye, I do have someone else look at them, but, maybe it's too close to it. It's nice to have somebody.
It's nice to have Pearlie on board.
If it got by Pearlie, it's fine.
Yeah.
It's not hit by Pearlie.
I will entertain a motion on these two second readings.
I move that we approve adoption of revised policy 5340 and approve the adoption of revised and renumbered policy is at 6400.
is the new one. Yeah.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any comments? All in favor?
Aye.
None opposed. Motion passes. Thank you, Melanie. Do we have any comments from administrators here? Any announcement?
The concert for the choir
Oh, yeah.
for the holiday concert is coming up on the 20th at
Yeah.
7 p.m. at Sanford High School. So that will be a great event. Let's do a great performance. I do have to say that last Friday night I had an experience where I was the de facto advisor for the Cyber Patriot Club. They had 6 hours to solve the problem. And I was only able to help them by ordering them Domino's pizza, the rest of them. But it was a great experience in seeing students leading students in solving problems. Mr. Gray could not be there that evening, and I stood back and watched multiple different students problem solve, to my amazement, of how they communicated with each other. And it was like 3 different teams of 6. They had to decide who was going to be the alternate. And I mean, it was just made you, it's exactly how we want learning to happen. As the adults step back and learning is happening at a deep level with these students. So pretty cool experience. So hats off to the Cyber Patriots.
Yeah.
So I haven't seen the results yet, but they were working hard cracking the code. So.
Anything, Phil?
I've got something that I don't get to say very often. We actually sent a team to state. And we got 6th place in volleyball, and 2 of my girls actually made the all-state team. So that's pretty cool.
Awesome.
All right.
That's great. Sean? announcements?
Just one, our strategic plan survey is live,
Yep,
so hopefully
saw that.
we can get a lot. We had 1,000 take it 3 years ago, so I think we can get a lot more with social media and whatnot, so
Yeah.
we should get a lot of good
Good.
feedback, so
Good.
that's it.
Yes,
I have an announcement.
ex-chair.
Thank you. If you want to get a sneak preview of John Brownell's choir, then you can tune in this Friday.
Oh, you
at
have it
noon.
on here?
He brings his chamber choir into the studio, which is hilarious. Anyone that's ever
Yeah,
been in the
there's-
studio, it's like the size of a phone booth.
Tiny.
And we had, I don't know, we had a dozen kids in there, and yeah, so we had a really good time. We actually taped it ahead of time, but it's for Friday. And has Ann Dickinson been here to report on the trip to Spain?
Not yet.
Not
Gotta
yet.
have her in.
Yeah.
She's gonna be
Yeah.
on with Evan, her son, for just a few minutes to talk about. They blew the doors off of everyone that
Yeah.
attended that global
Yeah.
conference that she was representing, her class was representing the United States.
Yeah.
I mean, you've got to
So
hear it.
excited.
She's got to, she needs to come in here and bring
She
some
could
of
be a
those kids
field goal.
and talk about the stories and the interactions that they had.
Yeah.
It makes the hair on
Gives
the back of my
chills.
neck go, oh no, it was amazing. And it
That's
was
great.
something to be completely proud of.
Yeah.
Well, with that, there's no other announcements. Thank you, meeting adjourned.